Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited to answer all your questions. Thank you for everyone who commented under my videos. I see you, I appreciate you. I made myself a lovely tea, so it feels like we're just having a little chat, hanging out. Go grab yourself a drink, get some tea, water, coffee, get multiple drinks, you know, I love that, and let's chat. I feel like I never really told you sort of where I'm from. I mean, you guys all know I'm from Germany, but where in Germany and why I'm in London. So yeah, let's get started with the basics. I'm from like a small town in North Rhine-Westphalia, near Dortmund, if you know the area. And the last time I lived in Germany, I lived in Düsseldorf. Literally no one asked me this, which I actually quite appreciate. I think it's quite nice. But I'm 28 years old, in case you wonder. I'm pushing 30, and guys, let me tell ya, I'm feeling it. In a good way though. I feel like the older I get, the more like secure I get, and I feel like mentally I feel a lot better than in my early 20s, turning 30 next year. For anyone that's into astrology like me, I am a Libra, and I'm a Libra through and through. My rising is Leo, which is also very on point, and my moon sign is Cancer, which means I'm a sensitive child. I feel like knowing my star signs, you know me a lot better now. So something interesting which I noticed in my life, I get on really well with Geminis and Leos, so if you're one of those, we'll probably be really good friends. I moved to London in March 2020, so right before the pandemic hit. It was before sort of any government lockdowns in the UK. That was an interesting time, and you may wonder and think, that's not a great time to move to the UK, and I would agree with that. But it was very much the time where we had to decide in which country we were going to be for the next few months. I was sort of living in between places anyway, and that's why we ended up spending lockdown in London. The most important part of the story, I moved to the UK and I moved to London because I met my boyfriend, so I moved for love. We were only going out for, I want to say, 6 months. We moved in very quickly, but it was also because there were obviously external factors like a pandemic. Yeah, it could have gone really wrong. We lived together from the start almost, and obviously we're still together, very much in love. So for us it worked out great. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend moving in with your better half that early. Maybe wait a bit longer than me. If you want to hear more about sort of my move to London and how my experience was moving here during COVID, finding friends during a pandemic, which was obviously quite hard, then you should check out the podcast episode that I did with my friend. There I'm sort of talking about how I found my people here, my first year here, and all of those kind of things. I've linked it down below if you want to listen to that. I met my boyfriend in a pub, and we met through a friend that we both knew. I always say it was fate because it was so random. I met this friend in Mexico while we were both sort of traveling through Mexico. My boyfriend and that person went to uni together. It was just like a random trip. I didn't live in London at that point, I lived in Denmark. I traveled to London with a friend from the US that I met while I was living in Portugal a few years back. Very random, and sort of people I met throughout the years, and it connected sort of all the dots. Yeah, I always say it was meant to be because I feel like that's like too random and too many people involved that I met throughout my life that sort of brought me to that moment. Very lucky, very grateful, and we've almost been together for 5 years now. Talking about traveling, I feel like I've never really talked about this. I've actually been around quite a lot. I've been traveling for quite a while. I've also lived abroad for quite a few years, so let's talk about that. After sort of the German equivalent of high school, I went to the US for 1 year, and I worked in Orlando, Florida, and I worked for Disney World. No, I was not a princess, unfortunately. I worked in Epcot, and I was working in the German pavilion. I was basically selling beers and pretzels, and yeah, it was a very tough year, to be honest. It was actually really hard work. I worked really long hours, and I had like barely any vacation as well, but I still had a great year. It was the first time I lived sort of not with my parents. I just moved out for the first time, and I moved to a different country. My English was absolutely horrific. I really learned to speak English in Florida while I was living there, which is obviously not ideal, I would say. I was also working there, which is sort of another level to it. But yeah, it worked out great for me, and I think I really obviously improved my English skills while I was there. After the US, I went back to Germany. I studied, I did my bachelor's and all those kind of things. Then I also spent 3 months on Hawaii in Maui, which was so amazing. I really loved Hawaii, and I'm really grateful for my time on Hawaii. And I've also spent a few months in Lisbon in Portugal, and yeah, honestly, this is so random. Maybe I should make a video about this because I feel like I lived quite a few countries, and like also like what I did there and like all of those kind of things. I obviously work to make money, right? But yeah, it was just like a crazy time, and I was like 21 or 22 at that point, I think. And I also traveled Mexico. I traveled through Mexico for like 6 months by myself, obviously, as a woman, which now looking back was probably kind of dangerous. Let me tell you, I've experienced some crazy things there while I was traveling, but I really loved Mexico. Food, the people, it's obviously beautiful. I really loved Mexico, and I would go back in a heartbeat. And if you have some time to travel, I would definitely say Mexico is a great shout. Places I enjoyed most were San Cristobal and Chiapas. I also really liked Oaxaca. I really loved Mexico City. Surprisingly, I only had like 3 days there because I thought I was not gonna like it as much, but then I really liked it there. I really want to go back and spend a bit more time there. If you're more after like a beach holiday, I really enjoyed Holbox. I was there for ages. It's like quite a small island. And I also really like Puerto Escondido if you're more into surfing. Really fond memories of my trip, even though it was a bit dangerous looking back. I also lived in Denmark for, I want to say like 6 months or a bit longer. I lived in Aarhus, the second biggest city of Denmark, which I feel like no one really knows, even though it's the second biggest city, which is sort of related to my master's degree, which I'm also going to talk about. Now, after obviously traveling to all those like exotic places and living in different countries, I ended up in the UK. I've ended up on the wrong island. Like, the weather here, guys. Maybe I could have ended up in Mexico. Who knows? You know what? Love London, so I can put up with the weather. Obviously like living in the UK, otherwise I wouldn't be here. Though I do think there are some things that we could improve, and London is one of my favorite cities in the world. So I'm very grateful that I can live here, and I'm also really grateful that I came before Brexit, which is also something some of you guys asked me. Came before Brexit, which means I was not impacted by the whole visa issue that people have now. Thank goodness. So yeah, I can basically get like a settled status next year because I've been here for almost 5 years. Definitely going to do that. Moving on, a lot of people ask me about my career, education and my background, so let's get into that. I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy and literature, which is why my bookshelf is full of books. But to be fair, it's not only my books, my boyfriend also reads a lot, and I really enjoyed my bachelor's degree. I think my parents at the time also were like, you know, do you not want to study economics or law? But I really loved my degree, and you know, I've ended up fine. I found a job, I'm happy with my job, and I think it's really sad that people move more and more towards sort of like economics and law and like studying those kind of things, because obviously studying humanities is a bit risky. You know, people joke about you're gonna be like a taxi driver after like all those, you know, this is not completely not true. It brought me so much, the way I sort of perceive the world, which sounds really deep. And I also have a master's degree in journalism and sort of political communication, and that was a joint degree, an Erasmus Mundus master it's called, and it's sort of funded by the European Commission, so it's quite hard to get into, but they do have really cool programs. I'm gonna link it down below in case any of you are interested in doing a master's degree. My master's degree I did at the University of Aarhus in Denmark and University of Amsterdam. I also did a semester abroad in Sydney. I went to the University of Technology there, which is also really cool. And yeah, those are all my degrees. That's it. And yeah, after my master's degree I worked in journalism mainly. I worked in celebrity news in London. You know, UK tabloid journalism and all of that is not for everyone, and to be honest it wasn't really for me, which is why I sort of left that behind. And yeah, I've been working in digital marketing for a couple of years now, which you probably know, and I think that's all about my sort of degree and career. I think that gives you quite a good overview. I also did a video where I'm talking a bit more about sort of how I got into digital marketing, how to get into the industry, so if you're interested in that, then I would say check that video out. Another thing that I forgot to mention when I talked about the basics is I have a little sister, in case you're interested, because my sister is actually my best friend and we're really close. I think I should mention her. I would feel weird not mentioning my sister because she's so important to me, so maybe she'll appear at one point in my videos, who knows. If you're watching this, love ya. Let's get into some of the questions you guys asked me. Okay, so someone asked me how I sort of get inspired and motivated to do something, especially living in a busy city like London. Obviously working and living in a fast-paced city like London isn't always easy. There are some things I do that sort of keep me inspired, and if I want to get my creative juices flowing, then I'll do those. So I think in order to get inspired, I really enjoy consuming art, and this can be sort of in different ways. I like going to museums, and if you don't live in London, it's actually quite a cool thing that most of museums here are for free, which is obviously so great and makes it a lot more accessible. I also like going to stuff like art exhibitions and galleries and all that kind of stuff, but that's obviously on my free days. When I'm working, there's also a few things I do that sort of keep me inspired and motivated, which are going for a walk. I feel like I've talked about this a lot, but I really enjoy walking with and without distractions. Not distracting myself with music and podcasts just really helps me to sort of think about things, let everything in my head like free, which obviously sometimes you don't want, and if I don't want to do that, then I will listen to a podcast, and there's a few podcasts I really enjoy which I would like to mention. I really like to listen to On Being with Krista Tippett. I also really like a podcast which is called The Jongian Life or something like that. I will link them here somewhere so you can have a look. I also really like The Atlantic, and they're putting out sort of different series. They did one on how to keep time, which I really enjoyed, and the new one is about how to tell what's real, which I also really enjoy. And another podcast that got sadly discontinued is the one by Emma Gannon. I really like that one, and sadly she stopped doing it. I'm gonna link it down below. I really enjoy listening to old episodes, so if you want to check that out, highly recommend. Something that I also really like to do, people watching. And that makes me sound like such a creep, but I just really enjoy sitting somewhere. It can be a park, or when you're in a cafe and you're drinking a little coffee and you're just watching people walk past. And I don't know, it just really always inspires me to sort of just look around, see people doing their thing. And another thing I really like to do is journaling. As you can probably tell from my career and degree background, writing is very much sort of my safe place. I enjoy doing it, it relaxes me. Just write it all down, get it out of your head, get it out of your system, and let me tell you, it really does help. Writing it down almost gives you the permission to delete it out of your head. And I'm a massive overthinker. I'm quite an anxious person as well, I would say. And I think writing really helps me to sort of get everything out and move on. And I think just on that, just something I wanted to mention as well, because I feel like we're getting to know each other here. A big part of my personality is that I'm quite introverted, so I definitely get my energy from being by myself. As I've gotten older, I've been a lot more selective with how I spend my time, and I say no to a lot more things that I probably would have said yes to a few years ago. I think I'm really working on not being a people pleaser as much. Someone asked me about my 5 favorite books, and I just want to show you the books quickly because I have them here. And we're starting off strong with quite a heavy book, and I also would say a disclaimer here because it's about sort of the Second World War, and it's a book I literally cried my eyes out almost the whole time I was reading it. I would highly recommend reading this, but just be warned that it's quite emotional. And the book I'm talking about is The Book Thief, the second book, which is also a really emotional book. It kind of changed something in me, which sounds really deep, but it's truly what happened. And it's this one. It's called When Breath Becomes Air, and this is non-fiction, so this is based on someone's life. He's a doctor, he's getting a cancer diagnosis. The book is about him coming to terms, I suppose, with his death. But what really stood out for me in this book is that he's an excellent writer. It's really worth reading it just for the writing itself. I give this to all my friends, which, yeah, I'm hoping I'm not traumatizing them with this. If you read one book of this list, I would say read this one. Another book that I really enjoyed is this one. Is called 4,000 Weeks, and I really enjoyed this. It's about sort of time, obviously, how we spend time, what is time, and how do we choose to spend our time. If you enjoy thinking about time and sort of time management in a way, I guess, then I think you would enjoy this book. Another book which I love, and I really recommend to anyone if you're like in a creative field, or if you want to work in a creative field or not, and it's The Artist Way by Julia Cameron, which I feel like I showed and talked about quite a lot already. I really encourage you to check this one out. It's why I do sort of my morning pages, my journaling in the morning, and she also encourages you to go on like an artist date once a week, do something creative, and I think this book is just a really great way to sort of live a bit more creatively and have more creativity in your life. It's a classic for a reason. Alright, and my last book, which is sort of on my favorite lists, is one for my Germans. Hello! It's called Über Menschen. It's by Juli. It's about being human, I think is the best way to describe it. I really like the way it was written, and I don't read many German books, which I really should do more. And if you're German, where are my Germans at, then I'd recommend checking this out. If you made it to the end of this video, then thank you so much for listening to me talk about myself for a while, which is quite weird to do because you're never really in a position where you just talk about yourself. I want to use this chance to say thank you to each and every one of you. There is now quite a few of you guys, which really surprises me in a good way. Obviously, I'm really grateful for everyone that's like watching my videos and sort of commenting. I see you guys. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here and thank you for watching my videos. I don't take it for granted at all. I'm really excited to sort of build this community. Yeah, just a big thank you from me. A big Dankeschön. If you do have any questions about sort of anything that I mentioned, comment under this video or reach out to me on Instagram, whatever way of communication you prefer. Auf Wiedersehen. Bye guys.